On Thanksgiving Day, I arrived at my daughter's house, unannounced, and saw my grandson shivering outside in 15 degrees weather, wearing only a t-shirt and shorts. Inside, the whole family was sitting at the holiday table, enjoying turkey and laughing in the warmth. Enraged by their betrayal, I kicked down the door and uttered 6 words that made their faces turn pale. But that was only the beginning of the justice that changed their lives forever. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. My phone buzzed against the dashboard. A text from my neighbor. Saw police cars at the Hendersons again. Domestic situation. Made me think of you and your family worries. I stared at those words while my old Chevrolet idled in the driveway. The Hendersons. Martha used to worry about their grandson too, back when she was still alive. To worry about anything at all. Now it was just me and that gnawing feeling in my gut whenever I thought about Leona's marriage. The clock read 2:30 p.m. Time to go. I shifted into reverse and backed out onto Miller Street. Snow had started falling an hour ago. Fat flakes that stuck to everything and made the roads treacherous. The radio crackled with weather warnings as I turned onto I-75 south toward Cincinnati. Classical rock station. Same one Martha and I always listened to. Led Zeppelin was playing something heavy that matched my mood. The passenger seat held 2 gift bags, one with a new baseball glove for Amos, genuine leather that cost me more than I wanted to spend. The other had comic books, the kind with superheroes he'd been reading since he was 12. Now 18, he probably thought he was too old for them. But I remembered being 18. You're never too old for heroes. Family is all we have left, Martha used to say, when she'd catch me grumbling about holiday visits. She'd been right then, and she was right now, even though her voice only existed in my memory. After losing her 6 months ago, every gathering felt precious and fragile. The windshield wipers struggled against the accumulating snow. Other cars crawled along at half the speed limit, hazard lights blinking like nervous fireflies. I kept both hands on the wheel and maintained a steady 40 miles per hour. No point arriving at all if I ended up in a ditch. Exit signs counted down the miles to Cincinnati. I tried calling Leona's house. Wanted to let them know I was coming. Maybe surprise them less dramatically than just showing up. The phone rang 6 times before going to voicemail. Strange, usually someone was home on Thanksgiving afternoon. A gas station appeared through the snow, bright fluorescent lights cutting through the gray afternoon like a lighthouse. I pulled in, filled the tank, and went inside to grab some coffee and a bag of those peppermints Amos liked. The clerk, a young guy with tired eyes, shook his head at the weather. "Roads are getting worse by the hour," he said, scanning my items. "You driving far?" "Just to Cincinnati. Family dinner. Be careful out there. Saw 3 accidents already today." Back in the truck, I checked the time again. 3:05 p. The drive usually took 45 minutes, but today it would be closer to an hour. I thought about Amos, probably helping his mother in the kitchen, maybe watching football with Wilbur. The boy had grown so much since summer, when we went fishing at Lake Erie. Caught his first base that day, grinned like he'd won the lottery. That's when I'd noticed the bruise on his arm. When I asked about it, he'd gotten quiet, said something about falling off his bike, but the mark looked wrong, too precise, too much like fingers. I should have pressed harder, should have asked more questions. Martha would have known what to do. The snow kept falling as I took exit 15 toward Leona's neighborhood. Suburban streets lined with 2-story houses, each one decorated with pumpkins and autumn wreaths. Christmas lights were already going up on some of them, twinkling through the white curtain of snow. I turned into Maple Grove subdivision, driving slowly past houses where families were probably gathered around dining tables, sharing stories and passing dishes. Warm light spilled from windows, creating golden rectangles on snow-covered lawns. This was supposed to be a good day, a healing day. Martha would have wanted that. Leona's street appeared ahead, and I could see her house at the end of the block. The blue 2-story with white shutters. Wilbur's pickup in the driveway next to her sedan. Smoke rose from the chimney, and holiday decorations covered the front porch. Everything looked normal, peaceful even. I slowed the truck as I approached, already imagining the surprise on their faces when I knocked on the door. Maybe Amos would run to hug me like he used to when he was smaller. Maybe this Thanksgiving would be the start of healing our family, the way Martha always dreamed it could be. I pulled into the driveway behind Wilbur's truck, the engine ticking as it cooled. Through the falling snow, I could see holiday lights twinkling around the front door, and hear faint music from inside the house. Something warm and inviting, like a Norman Rockwell painting come to life. Then I saw him. Amos sat on the front steps, hunched over with his arms wrapped around his knees. No coat, no hat, just a thin long-sleeved shirt and jeans already dusted with snow. His shoulders shook, not just from cold, but something deeper. "Jesus Christ," I muttered, throwing open the truck door. The wind hit me like a slap, carrying ice crystals that stung my face. In the few seconds it took me to reach him, I could see his lips had turned blue, and his hands were pressed tight against his body, trying to conserve warmth. "Amos," I called out, breaking into a run across the slippery driveway. "What are you doing out here?" He looked up, and the relief in his eyes nearly broke my heart. His face was pale, almost gray, with red patches on his cheeks, where the cold had bitten deepest. "Grandpa." His voice came out as barely a whisper, teeth chattering so hard he could barely form words. "I can't." I was already pulling off my heavy winter coat, wrapping it around his shoulders, before he could finish the sentence. The boy was ice cold, his whole body trembling like a leaf in a hurricane. "What do you mean you can't?" "Can't what?" I helped him stand, steadying him when his legs nearly buckled. "How long have you been sitting out here?" "I'm not allowed." He pulled my coat tighter around himself, and I could feel him shaking through the thick fabric. "I'm not allowed to go in the house." The words hit me like a physical blow. Behind us, through the brightly lit windows, I could hear laughter and the sound of a television, the warm glow of family celebration, while my grandson sat freezing on the front steps, like some kind of punishment. "What do you mean, not allowed?" My voice came out sharper than I intended, but anger was building in my chest like a fire. "This is your home." Amos flinched at my tone, and I immediately softened it. The last thing he needed was another adult yelling at him. "Please don't make it worse for me," he whispered, glancing nervously at the front door. "Please, Grandpa. If Wilbur hears you." I looked at the house, really looked at it, the decorations, the warm lights, the sounds of celebration. Then I looked at my grandson, blue-lipped and shivering in clothes that wouldn't keep him warm in 50 degrees weather, let alone this near-freezing nightmare. "How long, Amos?" I kept my voice gentle but firm. "How long have you been out here?" He wouldn't meet my eyes. Since this morning." "This morning." I checked my watch. 3:15. "Son, it's below freezing out here. You could get frostbite." "Could." I stopped myself before I scared him worse than he already was. I tried the front door handle. Locked. Of course, it was locked. They'd locked him out of his own home on Thanksgiving Day, and left him to freeze while they enjoyed their holiday dinner. "We need to get you warm," I said, guiding him toward my truck. "Come on, let's get you in the cab, where there's heat." But even as I moved to protect him, my mind was working, cataloging details. The way he'd flinched when I raised my voice, the bruises I'd noticed during our fishing trip, the careful way he moved like someone who'd learned to make himself small and invisible. This wasn't the first time. This was a pattern. "Amos," I said, as I helped him into the passenger seat, and turned the heat to maximum, "I need you to tell me exactly what happened today." I cranked the heat to full blast, and wrapped another blanket from my emergency kit around Amos's shoulders. His hands were so numb, he couldn't grip anything properly, so I held them between mine, trying to rub warmth back into his fingers. "Talk to me, son," I said, keeping my voice steady, despite the rage building in my chest. "What happened this morning?" He stared down at his hands, still shaking. "I was helping Mom with the turkey. She asked me to check on it while she took a shower." His voice was small, ashamed. I forgot to turn off the oven timer when I took it out to baste it." "You forgot a timer?" "The turkey got a little burnt on top. Not ruined, just darker than usual." He finally looked at me, and I could see the fear in his eyes. "Wilbur came in and saw it, and he lost it." I felt my jaw clench. "Lost it how?" "Started yelling about how I'd ruined the whole holiday. Said the guests would think Mom couldn't cook, that I was an embarrassment to the family." Amos pulled the blanket tighter. Then he said, "I needed to think about my actions, and that I couldn't come back inside until I'd learned some responsibility." "And your mother?" The question came out harder than I intended. Amos looked away. "She tried to say something at first, but Wilbur told her to stay out of it. Said this was between him and me." He swallowed hard. "She didn't say anything after that." I checked my watch again. 3:20. "Amos, what time did this happen?" "Around 11 this morning. 4.5 hours." 4.5 hours. In weather that could kill someone over a slightly burnt turkey that probably tasted just fine. I had to take several deep breaths before I could speak without shouting. "Has this happened before?" The question hung in the air between us. I could see him wrestling with whether to tell me the truth, probably weighing the consequences of honesty against the relief of finally having someone to tell. "Sometimes," he whispered, "when I mess up. Last month he made me stand in the garage all night because I forgot to take out the trash. And once he locked me in the basement for 2 days because I accidentally broke one of his beer bottles." Each word felt like a punch to my gut. I looked at my grandson, this smart, kind boy who'd never hurt anyone in his life, and saw the careful way he held himself, like someone who'd learned that taking up too much space could be dangerous. "Your mother knows about this. She says Wilbur's just trying to teach me discipline, that I need to be more responsible." His voice cracked. "Maybe she's right. Maybe I am just don't." I turned in the seat to face him fully. "Don't you dare blame yourself for this. What that man is doing to you isn't discipline. It's abuse, and it's going to stop today." Amos's eyes went wide with panic. "No, Grandpa, please. If you make a scene, he'll just take it out on me later. He always does." I could see the house through the windshield, still glowing warm and inviting, still full of laughter and holiday music. Inside, my daughter was serving dinner to guests, while her husband's stepson sat freezing in a truck, too afraid to ask for basic human decency. "Listen to me," I said, taking his hands again. "You are 18 years old. You don't have to live like this anymore, and I'm not going to let you." "But where would I go? I don't have any money. I can't afford college without." "You'll come home with me tonight." The decision crystallized as I spoke. "We'll figure out the rest later." I could see the hope and terror warring in his expression. Hope because maybe finally someone was going to stand up for him. Terror because he'd learned not to trust that things could actually get better. "He won't let me leave," Amos said quietly. "He'll call the police, say I stole something, or that you're kidnapping me." I looked at the house again, at the warm lights and holiday decorations, and felt something cold and hard settle in my chest. Martha had always been the diplomatic one, the one who smoothed over family conflicts with patience and understanding.